I want to help people to really fine tune their diets and their choices. And what happens is I see a lot of people, so many of you are so well educated, right? You go to this summit, you read this book, you're really educated, as opposed to 10 years ago when I started talking about this stuff. Like there was very little available to keep you educated. But the problem is you get confused. And everybody asks me questions like, what food sensitivity test should I run? And what about this test? And what about that? What about hair test and saliva testing for food sensitivities? And there's some things out there that are supposedly state of the art that just really haven't been scientifically validated. The truth of the matter is, in terms of determining your food sensitivities, there's no one good test that can do it. Let me repeat that. There's no one good test that can do it other than this, other than the lab that is your body, right? And how your body reacts to things. And let me explain a little bit why. And I'm going to explain a little bit why based on the difference between food sensitivities and food allergies. So most of the tests out there, most of the tests that are get this food sensitivity panel for 120 foods for $120, or the ones that are expensive, that are $1,000, like the Cyrex Lab one, I think is like 700 or 800 or a lot. And it's because they test a lot of foods, but also because they test particular kinds of antibodies. But just about everyone, I don't know of any that are out there that are not necessarily related to an allergic reaction to food. So what exactly is an allergic reaction to a food versus a sensitivity to a food? So an allergic response is when the immune system gets involved. And when your immune system gets involved, there's things called antibodies that get created by your body. And antibodies are our friends, baby. We don't want to get rid of antibodies because if we get invaded by a streptococcus or a COVID or a hepatitis or anything like that, your body is set up to be able to create antibodies to fight it off. And usually the antibodies are created after the first exposure to this thing. So now, okay, so it's good when it happens when our body's fighting bacteria and viruses and parasites and all those things that are foreign invaders. But what about when the body starts to attack your own food, right? We know about autoimmune disease where the body basically attacks its own tissue. These antibodies actually attack our own thyroid or our gut lining or our skin or our joints. But what about when it starts to attack your food? That's what those tests are testing for. So there's these different kinds of antibodies. There's an IgE antibody, which is called an immediate hypersensitivity antibody. And most people know if they have that, right? Eat a strawberry, get hives, right? Get a specific, what's called almost an anaphylactic. It can lead to an anaphylactic response. It's a histamine type response where the body gets swollen and the body gets red and we create this attack against the food. Those are usually mediated by what's called IgE antibodies. Okay, so that's not what most food allergies are. That's not what most food sensitivities respond like. It's usually this chronic buildup in the system that gives us these responses and we go, what did it? I didn't just eat anything bad, but it might've been something you ate 3 days ago. Those are mediated with what's called IgG antibodies. Those are more a delayed hypersensitivity. And what's the problem? How do you know what you're reacting to if you reacted to it from 3 days ago, right? It's not an immediate. And those are more difficult. And that's why people want to do these tests. Right? With an IgE, the typical old-fashioned skin prick test, that's where they come in handy because they're basically inserting a little bit of that antigen versus antibody. Antigen is the material that your body responds to. Antibody is the way that your body responds to it by gobbling it up, the little Pac-Man. So the IgEs are generally tested by skin. So if you go to the doctor and you say, I really suspect that I'm allergic to my broccoli or my wheat or my milk or eggs or whatever it might be, they may decide they're going to do this test because they're really smart, right? They know how to do it. They don't know what the heck they're doing because most of those responses are not immediate. they're delayed. So IgG, and you need to be testing those. The other type of antibody that very commonly gets involved with a food response is an IgA antibody. And the IgAs line all your mucous membranes, all of the sinuses in your throat, your lungs, your digestive tract, your vagina if you're a female, right? All of those places are mucous membranes. And the IgAs are the little soldiers that are standing and waiting for something to come in to attack. Now, most places don't test IgAs. Most test either IgEs and IgGs or just IgGs. And depending on the quality of the lab, depending on the price of the test, because it's expensive to test others. The other one, the last one, is IgM, and very few actually test that, but that's more a past response, right? You've created these antibodies. They're not active. They are in the past. And you'll hear that a lot when you hear about the CV, the virus that's going around. I don't like to say the word. When you hear about that, they talk about getting your antibodies tested. If you get an IgG antibody test and it's positive, it means that there's an active or very recent infection. If you test and the IgMs are elevated, it means that it's a past infection. It may have happened over the last few months or, year or whatever. And that's the reason that there's some problems with some of the antibody testing as well and how accurate it might be. So let's just try to tie this all together with food. And let's then compare this to what's a food sensitivity. So a food allergy happens when your body specifically responds to a particular food in your body, and it creates antibodies. And when we test for it, unless we're actually testing IgEs, IgAs, IgGs, and IgMs, and if you can't do IgEs, that's no problem because usually you know about those, right? You eat it, you get hives, your throat closes up. I had a child, a friend of my son's here, who was eating some healthy chocolate that I made, which was made with macadamia nuts. And as he's sitting in the hot tub, the kids are sitting in the hot tub, my kid comes running, my friend is turning red and he can't breathe. I'm like, oh. So it turns out his mom had an allergy to macadamia nuts. He'd never had macadamia nuts before. So she didn't warn me that he might have an allergy to macadamia nuts. And he was having an allergy reaction to macadamia nuts. Fortunately, I knew what I was doing. I didn't have to take him to the emergency room or call his mom because I was able to get the reaction down very quickly. But had I not known what I was doing, or if my stuff didn't work, I would have, of course, taken him to the emergency room, or I would have given him some ephedra, which is an herb that opens up the airways. I probably would have given him some caffeine to open up the airways as we tried to get this handled. But what I did was actually very helpful, which was very high dose vitamin C to break down that histamine reaction. And the sort started opening up, and I gave him some other things. I don't remember exactly, but I knew what to do. Average person wouldn't. That's an IgE response. The kid just immediately ate the macadamia nuts, and within minutes, his throat was closing up. Everything was swelling, right? We got him calmed down. We got him done, contacted his mom come and got him. He was fine. But that's an IgE type reaction. I had an IgG type reaction to eggs. I would eat eggs, and if I ate eggs one day and didn't eat them again for a week, I didn't have a problem. But if I ate eggs and then the next day I ate eggs and then the third day I ate eggs, I got the worst headache imaginable. All right. Or if I had a lot of eggs, like an omelet, or something that had a lot of eggs in it, then I would get the reaction. And I discovered it. Number one, I discovered it just by elimination. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. So those are the types of reactions. Now, here's the problem with the testing for those. If you do like an I think Cyrex Labs, for example, does an IgG and an IgM serum. So they test your blood to see. The problem is, if you haven't eaten that food for a while, because you suspect you might be sensitive to it, or you just don't feel so good when you eat it, then that test will come back saying negative or very low, most likely, because you have to have eaten it regularly within the last month. And when you read the instructions, the fine print on the Cyrex lab test, they will tell you exactly that. Make sure that you're eating this food regularly for a month. Now, here's the problem. Somebody suspects they're sensitive to gluten. They go off of the gluten, but they're not sure. So they want to find out for sure so that if they're wrong, they could add it back. So they go and they get one of these tests for IgG, and they haven't eaten it in 3 months. So it shows up that they're normal. Okay. They think they're normal. They go and they start eating it again, and their symptoms come back, and maybe come back slowly, and they don't even realize that suddenly they're feeling tired again, or their hormones are out of balance, or their menstrual cycles are wacky, or their digestion is a mess. The problem there is that they were away from it for a long time. Now, what Cyrex recommends when you take that test is that you eat the food regularly for a month before you take the test. Now, if I've, as a practitioner, explained to somebody why they should get off of gluten, they go off of gluten and they get better, I'm not going to put them back on that food so that they could get tested to confirm it. I think we've already confirmed it, but a lot of people want the testing. So the testing isn't going to be accurate if you haven't eaten the food in a while, with one exception that I know of. There's a lab called Entero Lab that does a stool test, and they test you for IgA antibodies. Now, the IgGs are in the blood. The IgAs are where? In the mucous membrane, right? So you're not going to see a lot of those in the blood, but you're going to see them like soldiers just waiting. And so they're going to show up in the stool. So the stool test for IgAs is actually quite accurate. And you don't have to be eating it because those are just soldiers in waiting. The IgGs get mobilized once it's detected and it's there, and got to get them in the bloodstream. So that's what I've found to be the most accurate. Unfortunately, this lab only tests about 10 or 12 foods. They are common allergens, of course, but they miss a lot of other things. So that's food allergies. Let's talk about food sensitivities. Couple of things. There are particular proteins in grains, not just gluten, but in grains. And they're common to grains. And they, let's just say, they can resemble opioids. They look like morphine. In fact, they are named gluteomorphine, caseomorphine, et cetera, morphine being the ending. So they have a reaction that's like morphine in the body, which causes what? Addiction. Morphine is a highly addictive substance. So if you have any foods that you eat a little bit and you say, I'm just going to have a little bit, and the next thing you know, you've eaten the whole package, you've eaten the whole loaf, you've drunk the whole quart, gallon, whatever, that's probably a morphine-like response. You're sensitive to the proteins in there that stimulate morphine receptors. Not a good thing. Not a good thing to be out of control when it comes to eating. And a lot of times we confuse this with an emotional eating response. And yeah, there might be some emotional eating responses that started, but that addictive thing is often related to your body having this sensitivity to this protein that stimulates the morphine receptors. Okay, so that's two different kinds of sensitivities: a food allergy, which is mediated by the immune system, IgE, IgA, IgG, or IgM antibodies. Number two, a sensitivity to the proteins that stimulate morphine receptors, opiate receptors in the body. And here's the thing about those. What happens when people take opiates? What? They feel good, they feel high, they want more. And they create a sensitivity, or an insensitivity actually, so that that little bit that they had that made them feel good, the next time that little bit doesn't work, they need more. Then they need more, then they need more, and then you're in a full addiction cycle, which oftentimes takes very, very serious measures to break, in terms of it has to be 100%. Have you ever heard of an alcoholic who can give up most of the alcohol and just have a couple of beers on the weekend with their friends? It doesn't work that way because of that sensitivity, that chemical sensitivity, the genetic tendency. There's a lot of possibilities there that create this situation where they just want more, they just need more, they want more. Same thing with these opiate kind of responses. You need to be off of those foods completely. Not everybody's that sensitive, but a lot of people are. And they're actually estimating that a lot of kids who are autistic, or even adults who are continuing to be autistic, have this sensitivity to those morphines. And one of the things that they're getting is that they do these behaviors, banging their heads and stuff to try to get their bodies to feel. And a lot of this has to do, and they really improve greatly when they get off of these morphine-like chemicals. The other type of sensitivity is actually a collection of sensitivities, but it's a sensitivity or an inability of your body to be able to break down certain chemical constituents of that food properly. And I'm going to name off a few. You've probably heard of them. Oxalates, salicylates, histamines, amines, right? Various kinds of amines. These are different types of chemicals that can be found in foods. They're normal constituents, lectins in foods. But if your body isn't properly breaking them down and properly eliminating them, either through the stool or through the urine or through the sweat, then you're going to have a problem with it. So there's a lot of people out there speaking about lectins as if they are the evil thing that hurt everybody in the world. They don't. But if you're sensitive to lectins, they do. If you have a leaky gut or an impaired membrane in your gut, if you've had some bacterial overgrowth or candida overgrowth, and they've produced a chemical called LPS, lipopolysaccharide, that's bored holes in your gut. And those chemicals that are supposed to maybe be pooped out are gotten into the bloodstream, and then they get circulating, then you get in trouble, right? So there's sensitivities that way. So just running an allergy test doesn't tell you all the things that you're sensitive to. It certainly can be part of the process if you do it right and you think it through. It could be an expensive part of the process. I remember when I first started out in practice 30 years ago, I determined, I love these food allergy testing. I'd done just so many functional medicine type of seminars with Jeffrey Bland and others who were pioneers, Alan Gaby and Jonathan Wright. Those are the main players back then. Now we have a lot of people who are educated in functional medicine. So I was learning, and I was going to run these tests, right? So I run the 120 food panels, and I would run them on people, and then we would take them off all of those foods. And, work on their other health issues, but take them off all those foods. And guess what? We'd go back in 3 months and test again. And guess what? Most of those foods no longer showed up as problematic. But a whole bunch of other foods did, because of their leaky gut, allowing these food particles to get into the bloodstream and cause a reaction. So I found that there were a lot of inconsistencies. There were a lot of times that people would be tested and they'd say, well, I feel terrible when I eat that food. Why is it showing up? Or that food I've never had a problem with. And there were a lot of inconsistencies. Some of my colleagues, I never did this, but some of my colleagues were skeptical enough that they would run split tests. They would draw the blood on a person and split it and send one to one lab, one to another lab, and check to see if the results came back the same. They didn't. So it's estimated that those can pick up maybe 80% of allergies, but then there's also the 20% false negative, the 20% false positive. So you can't really trust them. But if you do them in conjunction with an elimination diet, which we're going to talk about next, and you can use them to kind of get rid of some of the confusion if the elimination diet isn't giving you the answers, that's great. Now, some people do energetic testing, muscle testing, kinesiology, NAET. There's other ways that you can do testing. I also think you've got to test in relationship to a history and what's going on with them chemically, medically, et cetera. But it can definitely be helpful to see if a food is in a particular time. The problem with that is sometimes there's a food that your body may not react well to in the morning, but it may react well to later in the day. Or it may not react well later in the day, but it reacts fine in the morning. And you may not need it every day. It may react fine in conjunction with other things. So there's a lot of compounding information there. Bottom line is there's no one great way to actually detect and eliminate all the foods that you're sensitive to. But there are ways that you can do it that are reasonable. And let's talk about the elimination diet. It's the gold standard. It's the tried and true. It's the method that has been around for a long time. The problem is it's, a little challenging, and it's hard to interpret sometimes the results you're getting. So what is an elimination diet? And it's usually an elimination and then provocation, elimination and then reintroduction with careful monitoring. And that's why a lot of people get tripped up with this, the careful monitoring and watching for symptoms. So what I typically do is I have people prepare before they do the elimination diet so we can do it properly. So we have some forms to fill out and some symptom surveys, but also some food frequency surveys and questions about what are you craving? What foods do you eat that you feel like you have to just eat more and more and more and more of, right? And really paying attention. So I have people do about a week worth of observations before starting an elimination diet and filling out some forms and tracking your history. And yeah, it is a little bit of a pain in the you-know-what, but it gives you great reactions. And when I see the way that people respond and how great they feel when they're doing the elimination, it's phenomenal. The key is doing a proper provocation. So you do a prep, probably about a week of prep, get ready. Then you do the elimination. And depending on how bad your symptoms are, depending on how good we are at eliminating those things and identifying those things through the preparation phase, then that's going to determine how long you do it. Minimum 4 days. The half-life of the IgG antibodies, if we are talking about that, that's about 4 days. So we really want to make sure that we've got a significant reduction in the antigenic response that the body's having. So we do that 4 days minimum. Sometimes, for some things it's 3-4 weeks. Just depends, right? And I help guide people to what that should be for them, right? And it really does help to do this with a practitioner or with a group. And we're about to do that with our Empowered Self-Care group and our Body Freedom Nutrition Lab group. And those are two memberships that I have on my site to really help people on a massive level to be able to get well, rather than just having to have the expense of working one-on-one with a functional practitioner. So I love the fact that we can pull a group together and that we're going to be able to do it and support each other. If you're a member of Empowered Self-Care or a member of the Body Freedom Nutrition, we're going to be doing this. I've sent out many emails to you. Hopefully you got them. Some people said they haven't gotten them, but an email is going to go out later today or first thing tomorrow morning, just with some more stuff. And I will be getting on the Facebook group for those groups Friday and Saturday, and also doing it via Zoom for those in the group. And we're going to be helping you and guiding you through this elimination process. And I really am hoping that we could use the Facebook group as best possible. So if you're in Empowered Self-Care or Body Freedom Nutrition and you haven't joined the Facebook group, please do. And it's the Facebook group for those two. And there's a link to that in the last couple of emails that I sent out. If you're not in those, it's not too late to join us. They're monthly memberships. So what I would recommend is that you join the Body Freedom Nutrition group. I think it's $97 a month. You join it for a month. You do it with us for a month. For $97, you're going to get this amazing support, right, of going through an elimination diet. And I don't know of anybody that does an elimination diet that way. The way I do it, or that offers it as a public program. Right now, everybody's doing cleanses and we're doing all these boot camp type things to start the new year because of New Year's resolutions. But if you do all that, but you don't really do the elimination properly, you're not going to get that far. So I highly recommend you look into it. If you go to bodyfreedomnutritionlab.com, and then if you want to continue with us, you can. Right. And for right now, we're offering, if you sign up now, you'll get 6 weeks instead of a month before you have to renew. So it carries you through the elimination process. And then you can determine, do you want to continue with us and do whatever's going on? As part of that, we're doing a kitchen show where I'm going to teach people how to make foods that are low in oxalates. So that gets it back into the sensitivity pieces. So if I've got this really cool chart that shows symptoms that you may be having and some of these food chemical sensitivities and which ones might be applicable. So there's this list of symptoms. If you circle, I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this, you can look across and see whether there's a red, green, or yellow highlight in the box below that particular thing. And if you have a red for sure on more than 3 to 4 of the symptoms for that particular food chemical, then I would recommend that you consider taking those foods out. And we're going to help you with that throughout this program as well, throughout the elimination diet. I've got some new documents that I'm putting together that will be definitely loaded by the time we get started, before we actually start the elimination process. So for those of you who are in the group, go, it'll be there in a few days. I'm working diligently to try to get that all done. So we've got that, but we also have a really cool chart that lists all the foods you can possibly think of down one side and these food groups, chemical groups across the top. So it might say oxalates, and you look down and you can find a food and find out, is it approved on a low oxalate, or is it cautious on low oxalate, or is it green, or is it red that you should not have it on low oxalate? So once you've determined which of these sensitivities is possible for you based on your symptoms, and again, we'll have some of those evaluation tools within the preparation section, you'll be able to, on this elimination diet, just start to take out. And I'm not going to have you guys just take everything out immediately, because sometimes there's a transition period. So you may be doing like, okay, this day 1, day 2, day 3, as you're eliminating some of these food groups, so you're not completely overwhelmed. And then we're going to put you on what's called a rare food diet. The foods you generally don't eat a lot of, because if you don't eat it regularly, the chances of it being the cause of your symptoms is low. So I hope this gives you some insights on how this works, right? How this food sensitivity, how the elimination diet works, the problems with some of the testing, and how you can actually learn to use your body as a chemistry lab. That's why we call our memberships the Body Freedom Nutrition Lab, because you get to use your body as the lab to determine, experiment on it, and we give you tons of resources in there. So besides this elimination diet, this is just a little tiny part of what you have access to. So we're going to be doing a class on low oxalate food prep at the end of the month. I think it's around January 30th. So if you join us for the group, you'll be able to be there. And if you're already in, obviously, you're going to get there. Empowered self-care includes Body Freedom Nutrition. So those of you who are in the premium membership, the Empowered Self-Care Lab, you get access to everything in the Body Freedom Nutrition. And the Body Freedom Nutrition, you get everything that's in Empowered Self-Care that's related to nutrition. The extra things that people in Empowered get that you don't get in the Body Freedom is the stuff that's related to hormone balance and digestive balance. There's very specific programs that I've done. Our gut repair program, our adrenal repair program, our thyroid repair program, and our sweet spot blood sugar balancing program, plus a whole lot more. You get access to all of that in Empowered. If you're interested in finding out what's included, you can go to empoweredselfcarelab.com. All right. If you are a member of our Body Balance program and you haven't already kind of switched and transitioned over into Empowered Self-Care, we have a really special offer for you at, I think it's close to 50% off. You should have gotten that in an email. If you didn't get the email and you know it's crazy during the holidays, reach out and we'll be able to honor that for a few more days, at least before this elimination diet starts. So I think that's all I really had to say. Now it's time for you to post your questions. What questions do you still have about all this stuff, about food sensitivity versus food allergy, about testing, and about doing an elimination diet? So I'm going to go in here and see who's here. I see Margot and Lynn and Christine and Jeannie and let's see. Food sensitivities, I think I have them. Allergies, sulfa in drugs. Okay, that's one. Yeah. Sharon, hi, my sister-in-law. Good to see ya. Join us for this. Reach out to me and I'll get you in. Margot, when you say, can you help with yeast, what does that mean? Do you mean like a yeast overgrowth, like candida, fungus, that kind of thing? Or do you mean like a yeast sensitivity? Can we set up something to get the test? What do you mean by that, Margot? So what test are you talking about? I already talked about several tests, most of which I don't like. The Entera lab is probably your best bet, but there. Kathy, hi, Kathy. Okay, yeah, so please clarify, can we help with yeast and something to get the test, right? I would love to hear that. Oh, yeast overgrowth. Yeah. So here's the thing. You know, yeast overgrowth, when you do an elimination diet, you will be naturally eliminating the things that are sensitive, that, you know, the yeast are sensitive to. In addition, in our lab, you know, so if you join us for this elimination diet and you have access to the entire Body Freedom Nutrition Lab, there are some amazing classes in there in the library, the food prep library, that relate to foods that support getting rid of yeast overgrowth. And then there's an eating for digestive health section where you can look at that. And if you're in the Empowered Lab, then there's the whole in-depth, detailed parasite cleanse, yeast cleanse, leaky gut cleanse, etc. So if you're not in there already, I would check it out. And I'll put the links in the comments when we're done. So bodyfreedomnutritionlab.com and empoweredselfcarelab.com. But the elimination diet can be dramatic for that. And I'll tell you my experience with it. The ultimate elimination diet, by the way, is fasting. But a lot of times people don't fast long enough and they don't reintroduce properly. So a 4 or 5 day fast can do wonders for this. And I remember when I was not well, when I was in my 20s and I had yeast overgrowth and I had a lot of other things, a lot of food allergies, I did like a 5 day water fast, and I felt awesome. I was like, oh my God, everything's cured. Everything's great. But as soon as I started eating again, I started to feel bad, and I didn't know enough then. I didn't have a mentor. There wasn't Facebook. There weren't summits. Wasn't anything for me to do except for go to the library and read lots of books. And, you know, I finally did figure it all out and got my diet changed and did a longer fast and eliminated it all. Right after my 28 day water fast, I didn't have those allergies or those overgrowths anymore. I was like, it was amazing, pretty amazing. Most people can't do that, right? Most people can't take a month out of their lives to go to a fasting retreat and get help. But I was very fortunate back then, and it completely changed my life. And it changed my career because I quit my job and I went back to school, and now I'm doing what I do, which is I love. And I love really helping people to transform. So yes, food elimination diet can be very, very helpful, especially if you do it with a group and with some mentorship. So I highly recommend it. Yeah. All right. Any other questions before I call it a night? If you think of any later, I'll come back. I'll put the link in the chat. Let's see, Body Freedom. I wish I didn't have to look at my fingers to type. bodyfreedomnutritionlab.com. bodyfreedomnutritionlab.com. That should do it. And then there's the Empowered Self-Care Lab, which is the higher level membership, which is highly recommended. It's got every one of my programs that I've ever done. And for those of you already in, let's see, empoweredselfcarelab.com. And those of you already in, we just finished last week we finished the Nutrition Lab handbooks. So it's really basically a handbook taking you through every piece of the program. I highly recommend that you read those. Just download them, read them. They're not that long. It gives you a real good sense of what's in the program there for you. And we're just finishing up the Empowered Self-Care ones. They should be posted within the next day or so. I finish my part, then I have to get them proofed and formatted and put up on the site. So yeah, I'm really excited about that, guys, because it's going to take you step by step through the amazing set of resources that I've been producing for the last 30 years. And it's so great for me to finally have a forum where I can put it all together and get that information out to the world. Yeah, so if you want to, bodyfreedomnutritionlab.com. Yeah, if you want to join us for the elimination diet, just go ahead and join it for the monthly. I mean, if you want to join us for the full year, that would be even better. But we're going to give you an extra couple of weeks on it, and we'll start your next payment will be due somewhere in the middle of February. So you make it through the whole elimination diet if you join us now. right? So you'll get 6 weeks for the price of 4, basically. And I can't wait to get you in there. And 6 weeks should be enough to get us through the elimination process. You know, you'll still be introducing things, but you'll be on a roll with it because we'll help support you. And we'll be doing regular Facebook Lives and Zoom calls just to help you to get your questions answered. There's one regular call, 2 regular calls. One is the lab, kitchen lab, and the other one is a question and answer for the nutrition lab. And then the Empowered has 2 additional calls. One is a health topic, which is this month going to be on oxalates. And the other one is a second call for you to get your questions answered. So in addition to those, this month, we'll be adding some extra Zoom calls. We're going to do Friday and Saturday, probably around 1 p.m. Central Time. I have to look at my calendar and confirm, and I'll get an email out to that regard on the next day or 2. But definitely join the Facebook group because you can get the notification from Facebook when we go live. Okay, and that gives you the opportunity to come on and ask your questions. And if we do it on Zoom, you'll be able to do that as well. All right. Any other questions? Sally, wondering why when I eat something one day and then I eat it again the next day, I have a sensitivity reaction to it. My body creates mucus and I develop a wet cough. Example is with my green smoothie. I make enough for 2 days. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. So there's a couple of possibilities there, Sally. One is that if you're letting it sit for the next day, that there are bugs, bacteria, yeast, etc., growing on it. Mold, you might be sensitive to mold, and that builds up. The second is you might be having an IgG type hypersensitivity, a delayed hypersensitivity reaction. So it's when the antigen, whatever it is in there, builds up, that's when you get the response. Though there's a lot of lymph tissue to protect right at the epiglottis, right where this split is from your digestion into your lungs. And there's a lot of lymph tissue there that gets activated. If you're eating any grains can actually cause that to get activated, that lymph response to protect your lungs. So there's a number of possibilities, and it's a good possibility that there's some sensitivities. When we take you through, I think you're in one of the labs, aren't you? I think you are. I don't remember. But you're basically going to be filling out some papers. It's food frequencies, and we're going to guide you through the process of how to know which of those foods you might be more sensitive to based on your food frequency and all that. And we're going to try to get you on things that you don't normally eat on a regular basis. So it's going to take some careful tracking, but I think that being a good detective is what's going to help you to figure it out. Okay, let's see. I don't see any other questions. And Margot, I don't know what you meant by the get up to set up the test. Set something up to get the test. And Kathy, you're in NEPT, our practitioner training, and one of the benefits of being in NEPT is you get access for 2 years to our Empowered Self-Care Lab. So you have access to doing this with us. Hopefully you did get the email. Let me know. Good. Okay, good. I'm glad you're there. So if you either one, you can be in either one of them, and you'll get the access to this. And Kathy, you get it as part of NEPT. So hopefully you've been getting the emails that I've been sending, and please drop us a note and let me know. Yeah, Kathy's in NEPT, and you've been getting the emails related to the elimination diet. I've been sending them to everybody that's in ERC, because you automatically get it, NEPT, the full program, you automatically get it, and then of course Empowered and the other. And then those of you who were in Vital, you're probably now in the nutrition lab. So hopefully I got, you didn't? Somebody else said that yesterday. Christine, I think, said she didn't. So I will go check. I'm going to send another email out. I'll go check to make sure, because you should be getting those. Do we need to get a text with the elimination diet? Do you want to get a text? Are you in the nutrition lab, Margot? Yeah. I will make sure that we set it up with both a text and an email, but the email went out to hundreds of people, and one went out on late last week. A couple went out the week before, and I will check again. I'm going to check the list of people that it was sent to see if maybe something happened that it didn't get sent. So yeah, because anybody in NEPT is invited, and a couple of people in the lab said to me yesterday, when's the elimination diet starting? And I'd already sent an email to that effect. So I'll make sure that that information gets out there to you guys. Okay? Yeah. Do you need to get a test with the elimination? No, we're not asking you to get a test because I don't think the test, so you're going to do the elimination diet instead of a test, right? So you're just going to do the elimination diet. And then after you do the elimination diet, if they're still confusing and you're still having reactions that you're not sure about, then we might suggest that you get a test. But I'm trying to do this the old-fashioned way, the inexpensive way, because running those tests are hundreds of dollars. If you want to run a really good one, like the one from Cyrex is about, because they run multiple antibodies, it's around 400, 500, 600, something like that. And then the one from Lab, the stool test, is $99 for just gluten. But if you want to do the full panel of their different antibodies, you know, for eggs and other grains and things like that, then it's going to be more like 300. So most of them are going to be the cheap ones, which I don't trust because they're usually just IgE or maybe IgE, IgG. Those are going to be in the 100 to 200 range, but most of the better ones, Cyrex and Alcat and all those are in the $500, $600 range. So it's expensive. Why not do this instead? Right? That's what I think, because those tests are not going to catch if you have oxalate sensitivity, if you have the opiate sensitivities, et cetera. So we're going to take you through this. Yes, Sally, you are, as long as you're upgraded to make sure that there was after the Vital ended and the nutrition lab began, you got an email that said, please sign this agreement. And it's just saying that this is the group, that we're not giving you medical advice, et cetera, et cetera. So if you can do this, if you can sign that. Kathy did, yay. Okay, good. Yeah, so I hope to help you all to really get this. I know the change it made for me. I was suffering every day. I would eat, and some days I felt great, and most days I felt lousy. Then I'd have this day I felt great, and I'd go, okay, I got this licked, and then on the next day I'd feel bad again. And it wasn't until I did the elimination, the ultimate elimination with fasting. But you can do this, and I've seen people get better. And we have groups of foods that everybody's going to eliminate. And then we have other groups of foods that you're going to determine for yourself whether you should or shouldn't eliminate them. Okay? Based on how we guide you through. All right. You did sign it. Great. Yeah. So you should have gotten the emails. I'm going to check to see if those emails are getting out, because there's like hundreds of people in the groups that are supposed to be getting these emails. So I want to make sure you're getting them. I mean, I do this because I love to do this. I do this because I want to see you get well. I do this because I see people suffering when they don't need to be suffering anymore. I was suffering. I was 25 and I was miserable. We don't need to be that way. We don't need to be that way. Now it's 64. I'll be 65 this year. I cannot believe that. I will be eligible for retirement and Medicare and all that kind of stuff. And I don't feel a day over 40, right? Because of the way I've learned to take care of myself. And that's what I want you to have. At any age, it can turn around at any age. And I want you to age backwards, not forwards. So backwards, right? So you're getting better instead of getting worse every day. And that's what I want to help you with. And that's why we created these labs, because there's just very few people that I can work with one-on-one. I've got my coaches and they're busy working with people one-on-one, but it's also, it costs more to work one-on-one with a practitioner, because one-on-one, you know, that's a lot of time to get some information across and some coaching across. And there are times when you need the one-on-one, right? To interpret your labs, and when there's serious issues, when there's a lot of autoimmunity that's been there a while. So it's important, but I can't do that. I don't have the time. So I offer my stuff out to you as a group. And then if you need more in-depth, then I will recommend the right coach to take that for you and give you some sessions so that you can really fine tune it. Okay. So much love to all of you. Blessings, blessings, blessings. Huh. You didn't get an email. I didn't send an email about this, Sally, because we sent an email out earlier today about something else, and I didn't want to bug you with 2 emails in one day. We will be sending an email out tomorrow with the recording of this in case people missed it. And in case you came on late, you'll have it. But if you stay on Facebook, you can just get the replay immediately. For people who don't check Facebook a lot, and a lot of people are getting a little hesitant to stay on Facebook, I'm going to send out tomorrow. I think we're going to post the link to this tomorrow morning. We'll post the link to this to our blog, and then we'll send out an email in the afternoon to give access to it. And we'll remind you guys about the elimination diet, because I'd love to help you all to really identify the foods that help you, the foods that hurt you. And your foods are going to be a little different than mine, perhaps. There's some things that hurt us all. We'll make sure you get rid of those during this elimination diet and forever and ever. Amen. Thank you very much. But after that, there's going to be very specific things that you can eat and I can't. I'll tell you one thing I discovered. I have a continuous glucose meter on my arm. You can't see it right now because it's covered by my shirt, but I check my glucose, and my glucose has been maintaining really nice. I keep it under 100 all the time. And I ate chestnuts. My husband loves chestnuts. He's been making chestnuts, and I ate them right before Christmas, and I saw the blood sugar go up. But on the other hand, I've been eating a lot of stress, and I thought, well, maybe it's that, maybe not the chestnuts. So I got my blood sugar stable. It's staying under 100, mostly under 90, under 80. It's really good. And then I had more chestnuts the other day. I took, I think, 6 or 8 chestnuts, and I ate them, and they were so delicious. My blood sugar shot up to 150. 150 after it had been maintaining so well. So I'm sensitive to chestnuts. His blood sugar didn't do anything with the chestnuts, right? So we're all a little different on how our body handles the different foods. Some of it's related to our genetics. Some of it's related to the damage that's been done over the decades. And that's what the elimination diet's about, is helping you to get through it. So I hope this was helpful, describing the differences. You may want to listen to this a second time to really understand the differences between the different types of food sensitivities and food allergies versus sensitivities, the tests and all that. And I hope to have you be present, and let's get this elimination diet on going. So I'm seeing a lot of loves and hearts and all that. Thank you. Erin Beatty, good to see you. Yay, blessings to you too. Yeah. Okay. Good, great. So I hope to see you guys in the elimination diet. For those of you who want more information, just listen to this again if you came in at the end, or go to bodyfreedomnutritionlab.com. And one of the things that we are doing this month, every month we're going to be doing different food challenges and different challenges, health challenges that you can go through, different health programs and regimes that you can go through in the labs. And we're going to start contests. So like, the person that posts the most really cool recipes or whatever. We haven't decided what the contests are exactly. We're going to map those out from month to month. We're going to map out the schedule of the different topics from month to month. And I'm so looking forward to this. I mean, you can ask anybody on my team. I'm so excited about this program, about this ability to reach so many of you. All the stuff that is in this program has formerly been only available to either people who paid to be in the particular programs, or and they just got their particular program, or people in our energy recharge inner circle. And we only take 40 people a year in that, and the price tag is high. So I was excited that we figured out a way to get this information out and to be able to do these things as groups in a way that's affordable for everybody. So Body Freedom Nutrition Lab, even if you just join us for the 1 month, you're going to get 6 weeks if you join for 1 month. We'll make sure of that. And you'll get to go through the elimination diet. If at the end of that time, we'll send you a notice. If you want to continue, there's nothing to do. And if you want to cancel, you just press a button and say, I don't want to do this anymore, and we'll cancel you out. Just do it before we charge you, not after, and we'll make sure you get an email to that effect. Okay, if you do join, you'll watch your email, you'll get an email that says welcome, and then you'll get an email that says please sign the agreement. And again, we're making sure that you're aware we're not replacing your medical doctor, that, this is all education and empowerment, and that's it. You sign the agreement and you're off and running. So thank you guys so much for being here. Happy, happy, happy New Year. I want this to be the happiest and healthiest, most prosperous, peaceful New Year ever. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.